Während die Bevölkerung Danzigs ruhig und vertrauensvoll die Heimkehr ins Reich erwartet, sind die Volksdeutschen innerhalb der polnischen Grenzen wildestem Terror ausgesetzt. Viele Tausende flüchteten vor den Gewalttätigkeiten der Polen in den Schutz des Reiches und fanden vorläufig in Sammellagern Aufnahme.
This is part of a German newsreel from the end of August 1939. Those in front of the camera are talking of alleged Polish crimes against them and how badly they were treated as citizens of Poland. They are, of course, part of the German minority that lived in that country between the wars. The same tactic had been successfully used in Czechoslovakia, despite the citizens of that country enjoying a much higher standard of living than people had in National Socialist Germany. Of course, one does not need a newsreel. One can just watch the television. Today, the fascist imperialist regime of Vladimir Putin uses exactly the same tactics. It uses its own agents to infiltrate where there may be a Russian-speaking minority to accuse Ukraine of committing crimes against them. In both cases, this serves as a vehicle to create initial resentment, then tension, then violence, where locals are forced to choose which side they are on.
Dann nahm ich meinen Kinderwagen und mit Weinen gingen wir mit den Kindern über die Grenze und 12:30 gelang es uns, die Grenze zu überschreiten. Da nahm uns ein Grenzjäger, der schon Deutsch war, und führte uns in ein Dorf. Dort übernachteten wir. Und jetzt fühle ich mich sehr glücklich und wusste überhaupt nicht, dass es noch solche Leute gibt und so gut auf Erden zu leben, wie hier man behandelt wird. Und meine Kinder, die freuen sich jeden Tag, wie sie Essen bekommen und Milch, dass sie dort sowas noch niemals gesehen haben, schon seit 7 Jahren.
I'm not suggesting that the people shown in this newsreel are not genuine. They could be genuine. When there's violence from one side, that violence is likely to be repeated, and it's likely to be repeated against innocent victims, and these people certainly could be innocent victims. But what I do notice in this newsreel is that the people are incredibly clean and their clothes are well pressed. This suggests to me that they may not be refugees, but rather actors. But I need to make this very clear. I do not know that for certain.
Die deutschen Beamten kamen in diese Grenzzonen rein und dadurch wurde ich dann nachträglich durch den verfluchten Versailler Vertrag, den der Teufel holen soll, durch den wurde ich Pole, trotzdem ich kein Wort nicht mal aussprechen kann.
Just as the breakup of the Soviet Union left many ethnic Russians outside the borders of Russia, the Treaty of Versailles left many people outside Germany who had previously been inside the country. These people were now a minority in another country. Czechoslovakia, of course, had never been part of Germany, but Austria, although history for Hitler, like Putin today, could be perverted to suit his own purposes. In the autumn of 1933, Adolf Hitler appointed Rudolf Hess to run an organization called the Volksdeutsche Council, the Volksdeutsch being the name given to German-speaking people or racial Germans living outside Germany and Austria. Owing to the frequent inter-organizational quarrels which occurred in Nazi Germany, there was an abundance of state-funded organizations with no clear objectives. Disputes arose amongst personalities. At the end of 1936, the council was dissolved and the Hauptamt Volksdeutsche Mittelstelle, VOMI, was set up by Himmler. In February 1937, SS Obergruppenführer Werner Lorenz was chosen by Heinrich Himmler to head this office. His chief of staff was the SD man Hermann Behrens, who was chosen by Himmler. By order of Hess, the VOMI was given sole authority on ethnic issues. Organizationally, it was placed on Hess's staff and with Ribbentrop in his capacity as representative for foreign policy issues for the National Socialist Party. As a central office, VOMI took over the administration and distribution of aid and funds for ethnic Germans. As early as 1938, it had a budget of 50 to 60 million Reichsmarks, roughly equivalent of the entire budget of the Foreign Office. Foreign Office, of course, had embassies, consulates and thousands of staff to pay. There is, of course, nothing unusual in governments having organisations which promote their culture abroad, and indeed to assist people of their ethnicity abroad. Today we can find organisations such as the British Council, Goethe Institute, Alliance Française, Institut de Cervantes and many more. These organisations run libraries in foreign countries and hold cultural and other events. This was similar to the remit of VOMI. However, in addition to the officially declared goals, VOMI was also involved in the creation of fifth columns, consisting of Nazi-supporting Germans living in other countries. As far as interwar Poland was concerned, these organisations included the Partia Młodo-Niemiecka w Polsce, in German, Young Deutsche Partei in Poland, that is to say the Young People's Party in Poland, which was active throughout the country. There was also Jednoczenie Niemieckie, Deutsche Vereinigung, that's the United Germans, which was in Pomerania, Volksdeutsche Volksbund in Upper Silesia, and Deutsche Volksverband in the Łódź area. What may not have been obvious to the host country was that many of those scout leaders or language teachers were actively looking for recruits who resented living in the country where they were. These recruits actively participated in the preparations for the incorporation of Austria by the Reich, supporting Konrad Heinlein in his efforts to separate the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia and join it to Germany, and in creating the fifth column before the attack of Poland in September 1939. This organisation also supported National Socialist organisations active in other countries. So rather than being a national organisation, it was a political one. By the beginning of World War II, some 25% of all Germans living in pre-war Poland were, or had been, members of organisations which had been directly funded by the VOMI. This may seem a large amount of people, however, it needs to be pointed out that 3/4 were not members of such organisations, and membership alone does not imply agreement with the policies of the then government in Germany. These organisations maintained secret contacts with party and state headquarters in Berlin, the Nazi Party itself, Auslandsorganisation, Gestapo, SD, Abwehr and others. By October 1938, when Czechoslovakia was carved up by Nazi Germany and Poland, the organisations financed by the VOMI came under the direct control of the Sicherheitsdienst, the SD, the security service. They were also fertile recruiting grounds for those willing to conduct espionage or sabotage. Dreaming of a day that when they would be united into Hitler's Reich, some fanatics made lists of locals in Czechoslovakia and Poland that were to be arrested come the glorious day. These lists were made up of people believed to be hostile to the Third Reich. By July 1939, a list of people to be arrested in Poland had been compiled by the SD at the request of Reinhard Heydrich. This was called Sonderfahndungsdruck Polen. More than 61,000 names of Poles, particularly dangerous to the Reich, were placed on the list. The Sonderfahndungsbuch Polen contained in alphabetical order the names of political activists, intelligentsia, nobility, people who participated in the Polish independence movement and uprisings such as the Greater Poland Uprising, Silesian uprisings of 1918 to 1921, plebiscite activists in Mazuria, Warmia and Upper Silesia, members of the Polish Western Association, the Polish Gymnastics Society, Sokół, the Polish Scouting Association in Germany, and the Polish minority in Germany. As many as 90% of the Poles who found themselves in it were arrested, many being murdered. In October 1938, the more extreme elements of these organizations were recruited into the paramilitary Selbstschutz. They were particularly dangerous because of their local knowledge, their resentment against the Polish state, and their knowledge of the Polish language. It needs to be pointed out, however, that their commanders were, as a rule, Nazis from the interior of the Reich. As from the beginning of the attack on Poland, on the 1st of September 1939, terrorist groups were to commit crimes against the local population on a large scale. The very first murders of the Polish campaign were committed in the free city of Danzig. As the Wehrmacht advanced, militias seemed to spring up as though they were more or less spontaneously formed. Polish Army Command noted on the 1st of September 1939 the presence of armed gangs who were killing ethnic Poles. These gangs took different names such as Hilfspolizei, Heimwehr, Bürgerwehr and others. On the 8th of September 1939, Himmler decided to create the Selbstschutz on the grounds of allegations that the Polish population was murdering the German minority in Poland. Officially, the Selbstschutz came into being on the 20th of September 1939. Himmler then ordered Gottlob Berger, the head of the SS Replenishment Office, SS Organisationsamt, to organize self-defense of the Volksdeutsch on the occupied Polish lands. On the 7th of October 1939, Himmler issued temporary guidelines on the organization of the Selbstschutz, which stated that this formation would be formally subordinated to the local police commanders, and it would include all Volksdeutsch able to carry weapons aged between 17 and 45. Thus, the underground terrorist organizations which had operated in Poland in secret became official organizations of the occupier, led by the most active members and thus the most bitter against the Polish state. Massacres occurred throughout occupied Poland. After the September campaign, the leaders of the German minority in Poland who distinguished themselves during it received the Nazi Party gold badge from Adolf Hitler for their services to the Third Reich. Here we can see some of the happy winners. Not all of them are from Poland, needs to be said, but I can tell you who they are. Ludwig Wolf from Łódź, Otto Ullitz from Katowice, Gauleiter Josef Wagner from Wrocław, Mayor Rudolf Weissner from Bielsko-Biała, Obergruppenführer Werner Lorenz, Senator Erwin Hasbach from Cichocinek, Baron Gero von Gersdorf from Olau, and Weiss from Jarocin. Let's now fast forward to the attacks on Ukraine by the Putin regime. You can see that the playbook is the same. The moral of the story is that Nazis are Nazis and they do not change. In future videos I shall talk more about the activities of the Selbstschutz and other organizations in occupied Poland, as well as continue other videos on the terrible fate of the Polish people during the war. If you're interested, then you might like to subscribe.